So there's another idea. There's another idea that lurks in the Passion account, that's really quite stunning and horrible. So the Passion story is an archetypal tragedy, and the reason for that is that a tragedy is when something terrible happens to someone, but a more profound tragedy is when the worst possible thing happens to the least deserving person. And so that's the Passion story in some ways, in a nutshell, right? You have a man who, by universal admission, even on the part of his enemies, is at minimum a very good man who undergoes the worst possible sequence of betrayal and punishment. And so that's the story of the tragedy of human life writ large. But there's more to it than that, because there's a mythological insistence along with that Christ was not only crucified, but that he had to descend into the depths of hell itself and harrow it. And what that means to me, psychologically speaking, let's say, is that you're called upon before rebirth, that's a good way of thinking about it, to not only bear the brunt of the tragedy of existence, but to face malevolence head on, right? To go into the deepest and darkest possible places and what will you say? And while redeeming them to the degree that that's possible, simultaneously redeem yourself. And so the notion there is that the brightest possible light is only possible through the descent into the darkest possible realm of blackness. And that actually goes beyond death into malevolence itself. Now, Jim said, because you might say, well, there's nothing that you should be more afraid of than death. But Jim said, he's appalled enough about the existence of malevolence that he would be willing to give his life to eradicate it. And so that obviously means that for Jim, malevolence itself is a more terrifying specter than mere death or even mere suffering. And then there is this gospel notion that unless you're willing to take the weight of hell onto yourself, essentially, voluntarily, that you can't go through that process of descent and rebirth. And that is associated in the gospel accounts, let's say, with that rebirth into the spirit of childhood. And so you have done what you could to face the ultimate reaches of darkness itself. What has that done for you? And then also, you made some very interesting comments about your wife. You said that in some ways you were hoping she would tell you to, be sensible and come home, but she didn't. She told you to go put yourself on the line. And there's a huge story there that's touched on in the movie, but not delved into to any great regard. How has your encounter with the darkness that you've seen made you a better person? And what has that done with your relationship with your wife?
I think it's made me a better person because the weight that you speak of that is on your back is unbearable unless you can give it to some other power, in my case, to Jesus himself. And that's to subject myself completely and repeat his words in my mind, because I know where he stands on it, he'll take it from me. And I felt that. I have felt that in ways I can't even articulate, that don't make any sense on a scientific level. The burden is lifted. And that's what gives me clarity and courage to do things I otherwise wouldn't dream of doing in order to help children. And it's a concept that my wife understands. In fact, I'll tell you this, it's like she morphed into some kind of a therapist in that moment after she told me that her salvation might be on the line. She's much more advanced than I am in every way, and especially spiritually. And she helped me to see that very thing, that give the burden to God, and then you can be, but you have to subject yourself like a child in order to do that and recognize you can't on your own do it. But she ran me through this exercise. I don't know where she got it. Maybe it was a download from heaven, but she said, do you see the two paths you're going on? Either you go into Colombia and you do this operation, and what does that look like? And I said, it looks horrifying. It's scary. It's dark. There's cobwebs. I was literally imagining this. There's spiders. There's evil things. And she said, what's the other path? And I said, well, the other path is light. It's, I can see at 50, I get to retire, and then I don't have to, I'm paid a federal government salary my whole life and benefits. And that seems secure to me. And that seems comfortable. Then she says, close your eyes and you're with your maker. You've passed through this life and you're talking to your maker. And he has 2 questions for you. 1, could you have saved the kids? And 2, did you do it? That's your interview. And she's, and it shocked me. I thought, oh, that's going to be a bad interview if I don't have the right answer, if I don't make the right decision here. And then she says, okay, now go back to those 2 paths. What do you see? And I'm telling you, the cobwebs and creepy things were now on the path of staying in my federal government comfortable job. I thought, what might I lose? What blessings might not come? And then she said, what do you see down the path of Columbia? And she said, I see warmth. I can't see everything, but that's the path I want. And I think that's what that means, is I will give it to God and do the right thing and subject myself like a child. I hope that made sense.